Thank you, Dr. Joshi, and to the South Asia office of IFPRI for kindly hosting this important meeting. Next, I'd like to introduce Dr. Purnima Menon. Purnima truly needs no introduction because if she hadn't invited you, most of you would not be here, I imagine. She is a senior research fellow at IFPRI's Poverty, Health and Nutrition Division and is based here in New Delhi. She also co-directs POSHAN. Now, in addition to the wide range of research that she does, including on Live and Thrive, also on Transform Nutrition, Purnima really has been a force for nutrition, at least in the policy dialogues here in Delhi, and in many of the conversations that have helped move this issue forward. She's obviously been a close colleague and friend to many of us, and it's been an absolute delight to have the opportunity to work with her here. So without further ado, Purnima.
Thank you, Ramanan. That was a really kind introduction. Dear friends and colleagues, it's such a pleasure to see so many of you here. Also so glad to see Dr. Satish Agnihotri, Professor Reddy, and our senior leadership from IFPRI. It truly is a milestone event for us. What I'd like to do today is share for you why we've convened this conference and what we hope to get from it. There are still some people who will join us through the day and through the rest of this session, and we expect it to be 2 days of really full and vibrant discussions. I also really want to welcome everybody who's here from the different states across India. We do have people from 14 states at this meeting today, and for me this makes it different from our typical Delhi nutrition conversations. Let's hope we get all the technology right here. We've all heard the numbers about undernutrition. The Global Hunger Index was released a few weeks ago. Every year we release it, and every year we get a good buzz and discussion in the media about the numbers and about India's movement and ranking and how many millions of children in India are undernourished. But to me, undernutrition is very much the story of women and children who live in challenging environments on a day-to-day basis. And solving undernutrition requires us to think really hard about these environments that these women and children and these poor households live in. You've seen the UNICEF conceptual framework and diverse other frameworks of looking at India. But to me, what that framework is the story of this woman, this child, living in households and doing things on a day-to-day basis. At the most immediate level, what happens to a woman and a child in a household is the result of some of the immediate conditions that relate to food, to feeding, to health, to care, to prevention and treatment of illness, and to women's own health. And we'll speak about several of these issues today in this conference. You'll hear a lot about people trying to change these. It's also very much about what things look like for these women in their homes and in their communities. What do things look like in terms of food security and the quality of their diets, of sanitation, incomes that are available to these households, women's empowerment and education, and health and other services. And finally, it's about where these homes, communities, and women are situated in their societies and culture, in politics, and in the larger economy that they live in. So this is, to me, the UNICEF conceptual framework, and this is why we have to find solutions that actually address these multiple determinants. Now, if we think just about the immediate causes of undernutrition, we have a lot of research that tells us that what we need to think about here as people that act, as program implementers, as policymakers, is to think about increasing the coverage and the linkages of a suite of interventions that we know work. We call them nutrition-specific interventions. You will hear more about them through the day. We need to make sure that they reach every mother-child dyad that lives in these contexts. So thinking of delivering and synergizing these across a continuum to reach every single person is absolutely crucial. What we know in India, though, is that there is a serious gap in the coverage of these interventions. not a single one of them reaches even half the people that it should. And that gives us much pause. Admittedly, these data are old, but we hope there'll be some new data out to update this story. The POSHAN team and the Transform team have reviewed over the last couple of years all of the policies, program guidelines, and what exists to actually support the delivery of these interventions. And we know 4 things as part of that. We know that the policies are largely in place. Guidelines are in place for many things. But a strategy to actually achieve that linkage, synergy, and coverage across for this mother-child diet is what really needs a lot of thought. We know that the national programs actually include a very decent set of evidence-based interventions. Not everything is there, but a lot is there, and it needs to get delivered. We know that program funding outlays in India are very impressive, but we haven't quite finished our analysis of is the outlay that exists currently enough to close the gaps. Last but not least, we have 2 flagship programs of the Government of India that have armies of frontline workers on the ground tasked with delivering these nutrition-specific interventions. And the work ahead is to make the connect and to help them deliver these better. So you will hear about this at the conference. We also know that improving those underlying conditions is actually very key to nutrition success. Several empirical studies, and you'll hear some again through the conference, tell us about factors that have led to improvements in undernutrition over time. They point to issues such as women's education, food security, poverty, sanitation, household assets, income, fertility. They're all things that we must tackle to improve nutrition. So with these 2 things, the other thing that we now know about what drives success is the importance of leadership, capacity, and accountability that helps to bring them all together. But what does this mean for India? What does this conceptual and empirical understanding mean for action in India? It means that collectively, our programs have to change this environment. They have to close the gaps in the immediate, in the underlying conditions, and in the enabling environments. And most importantly, they have to do this together at the same time for the same woman, the same child, in the same place. And for every woman, every child across India and across the globe. And that's why we really have to try and crack this nut together. Which brings us to why we're in this conference and what brought us to this point. As we had started this work in 2012 to 2013, it was clear to us that there needed to be quite a bit more work to, let's see if, okay. It was clear to us that some more work was needed to understand this whole issue of cross-sectoral work, because there was the understanding, there was the dialogue, but there was still a lot of discussion about how exactly to go about it and what people were doing there. So we did some reviews. There's a policy note in your packages that covers that. And we did a small workshop with MWCD and the Planning Commission that were thinking about it at that time. In January 2014, the Ministry of Women and Child Development actually launched a multi-sectoral nutrition program. And at that launch event, we also released the policy note that's in your packages. It was still clear then, though, because that meeting was about the ministry and several representatives from state governments here to discuss how they were going to actually implement this multi-sectoral program, and it was clear that there needed to be a lot more dialogue around it. So we decided then to bring this conference together to facilitate that dialogue. In 2014, we put out a call for abstracts, went through a review and selection process. The abstracts cover both research and implementation. So from a knowledge perspective, we have both evidence and an experience base here. And through June and August, many of you in the room worked very closely with our team to actually help write up some of your experiences into these implementation notes, which will be launched today. Simultaneously, a new government has been elected in India. This new government is in the process of reviewing and developing a new strategy. We know that state governments are doing the same. And so Together for Nutrition happening now is very timely. We think this will really help to feed into some of the decisions that need to happen. Our goals for the conference are threefold. The first is to learn through the evidence and through the various presentations of the research what actions in diverse sectors are really needed to enable greater nutrition impact. The second, and this comes about from much of the implementation experiences that are documented and that will be shared at the conference, learn about how to bring about that effective cross-sectoral action. And third, because we know the road ahead is still long, we know there's a lot we don't know, we think we want to identify where we need to know more and what we need to do more on to get us to where we want to take. Very quickly, the conference format includes submitted abstracts as well as invited speakers. We will cover cross-state and state-level experiences, the use of community platforms, issues related to intersectoral convergence between the two ministerial programs, ICDS and the National Rural Health Mission, to deliver nutrition-specific interventions. There are examples of different partnerships, not just government, but beyond contributions. We have invited speakers that will speak about nutrition-sensitive areas, bring perspectives from really diverse fields, bring evidence on how to strengthen work across sectors, and how to mobilize for action at the district level. This is a big country. We have to take it all the way down to 600 districts. The topics covered in the conference cut across issues of nutrition-specific, nutrition-sensitive and underlying determinants, and enabling environments. There are things that aren't covered, but we hope to unearth those as the conference proceeds. So without further ado, I'll hand the conference back to the co-chairs. Thank you so much, and welcome.